intro about Yella. Yella finished his bachelor's IIT Bhubaneswar in ECE. Then he finished MBA from Trinity College Dublin, Ireland, in strategy and innovation. And he worked with the Deloitte company for as a consulting. He worked in various projects in Asia and all over Europe. And at the moment, he's working for as a senior business analyst for a reputed financial firm in Dublin, Ireland. So today is going to present about agile estimation and techniques. So yeah, and if you're not talking, just please mute yourself. Yeah, that's and enjoy the session. And I will hand over to Yella. Yella, I think you're in mute. You are in mute, Yella.
Sorry, thanks for letting me know. Somehow I just removed it, but again, it muted me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Thanks, Ravan, for giving a bit of background about me. This is our first meetup. It is Shravan's first meetup, and I'm very happy to help him here. And I see there we got people who are working as Scrum Masters and who are newbies, and it's a good mix of people where we can discuss as well as present stuff. The style for this presentation would be, it will be more of a discussion rather than a presentation. I'll be talking about the topic, and then we discuss about that topic, your own real experiences. And if you're already working towards a certification, we can also talk about those certifications related to that topic. So about me, as Shravan rightly said, I'm a senior business analyst at Davy Group. It's a financial services firm. It's the largest financial services firm within the island of Ireland. They are into wealth management, stockbroking, corporate finance, real estate, whatnot. They're into everything in financial services. I worked for Deloitte for 5 years back in India after my undergraduate at IIT Bhubaneswar. And then I moved to Ireland to do my MBA, and I ended up working at Davy just after my MBA. I have certification in Scrum Master PSM, Professional Scrum Master from Scrum.org. And then I also completed my PMI ACP, which is from Project Management Institute. It's a tough certification, but it's good to have that. It's as equivalent as PMP, which is for waterfall methodology. You can reach me in LinkedIn at Reddy Yalluru. You can also reach Shravan at LinkedIn at Shravan365. He is a PSM, he's a Scrum Master, and he also has Safety Agilist. He currently works for Textrom, Textrom Limited, which is based out of based out of Dublin as a Scrum Master and an analyst. For me, Scrum, I'm not a pure Scrum Master at work because I work with CXOs on technology strategy, but I also execute projects for them. I execute projects for them using Scrum methodology primarily. And we also use traditional waterfall for some of the smaller projects where it doesn't make sense to have Scrum. And this session is about agile estimation techniques. So we'll talk about what they are and how to use them in your work. Yeah, the agenda for this call is to basically understand what's agile, what's waterfall, what are the differences. When someone asks you in interview, the first question for any business analyst or a project manager would be, if you say I have been an agile master, what's the difference between agile and waterfall? Why do I need to use waterfall when I use agile when waterfall is working fine in our company? There'll be few questions around that. So even if you are entering into a software development role, they would want you to understand these kind of basics so that you'll be fit into the role rather than, instead of training you a lot on the job. The second thing would be around why do we estimate? Because estimates are nothing but wrong guesses. Do we really want to guess something and do the project instead of just doing the project? There'll be people who plan a lot but don't execute well. There are people who execute a lot but don't plan well. Both are problems. So that's where estimation comes into picture, and we'll be talking about why, when, what to estimate. I'll be touching base on agile estimation terminology. It's only 3 to 4 words, which will help you to understand what agile estimation is about. And whenever you sit in a Scrum meeting or you work with Scrum Master, they'll be using these three as a common terminology. And at the end, I'll be talking about important agile estimation techniques, and I'll be doing some whiteboarding on that. So you'll also understand what exactly those techniques are and where to use them. Some techniques are good with smaller teams, some techniques are good with larger teams. Some techniques are good to know, but may not be really important in your work. So we'll be covering those things. And at the end, I'll also be, I'll be talking about what certifications do you have in Agile? Why is it important to have an Agile certification in the work culture now? In general, why certifications are important if you want to get roles, if you want to get interviews. So yeah, that's about it. So the main, in parallel to the discussions around estimation and Agile, we'll also be concentrating on how to tackle these questions in interviews and how do we complete the certifications related to this topic. This would be the discussion today. Any questions here? Please shoot. You can stop me anywhere. The rules are simple. You can stop me anywhere. You can give inputs anywhere. If I'm saying something wrong, you can correct me. No problem. Any questions before I dive in?
We are good, Yella.
Yeah. Thanks, Prasad.
Yep.
So Agile versus Waterfall. Waterfall has been, Agile is something new which came up in the 21st century millennium stuff. But before that, everything was Waterfall. We used to have some requirements, software requirements or hardware requirements. And then we used to design the software or the hardware. And then we get into development. And then there's a test team which does testing. And at the end, you deploy it. So there is a team for everything. Like requirements are gathered by business analysts. Design is done by designers, UX, UI, or hardware designers. Development is done by developers, like software developers who are Java coders or Python coders, and then hardware development is done by the hardware experts or electronics experts, and testing is done by someone else, and deployment is done by the product management team. So everything was in silo, and if everything is in silo, you know what kind of problems you face. Knowledge transfer would be a big problem. Planning is done upfront, so planning is completely in the hands of people who are gathering the requirements, but the development and testing people are the real executors here, so there's no communication between teams. And third is everything is documented rather than being fluid. That from my perspective, those are the big problems with Waterfall. Whereas Agile, what Agile does is it divides entire work packets into multiple sprints, and each sprint is like a small project, and the planning is done at at project level as well as sprint level, and actually at daily level. For this session, if I am talking about Agile, I'll be mostly discussing about Scrum, because that's the most important Agile project methodology. I'll also be touching base on Lean, XP, and Kanban whenever necessary. Okay, within Scrum, how Scrum works is if you have a project, let's say you're developing an app to sell movie tickets in this example. So to sell movie tickets, you need to build features, right? So in Agile, what you do is you kind of tackle each feature at a time in one single sprint, and you move on to the next one. So for example, to order tickets, I need to have movies within the app. So that's one feature. So that will be done in a sprint or two based on your estimates. And if so movies are there now, I need to click on the movie, click add to basket, and pay the payment. That may be a second feature. It may take some time, so it may be done in two sprints or three sprints. So that kind of, you can plan high level, you can plan at work level, you can again plan at daily level, because Scrum also has something called daily Scrum, where you talk about what's done today, what are we doing tomorrow, and if you're facing any problems or impediments. If you do not have foundations of these, I can explain it further. Let me know if you understood the differences between Agile and Waterfall in these layman terms. Yeah, if there are no questions, I'm going ahead then. What happens in traditional estimation, which is Waterfall, is you plan upfront, and then you want the other people to just follow the plan which you made for them. But the other people who are in development testing, the real executors, they do not have any role in doing traditional estimation. They make you inputs at high level, but the main issue or main estimation comes around work. Let's say I estimated 10 days to develop the feature to have movies on my app or have movies on my website. But when I'm doing it, I may encounter some problems that, oh, the cloud infrastructure is not working, or I estimated it wrong because it was high level, the requirement was at high level. Now, when I'm working, the requirement became detailed, and they're asking me to do many things. So I need to add more time. So the estimation becomes accurate, as you pass along the project rather than at the start. So whereas in Agile, you have this planning, you can do planning at multiple levels all through the project. Whereas in traditional projects, you do planning at upfront, and it causes a lot of problems. Even in Agile, we do upfront planning, but we don't spend a lot of time in upfront planning. These days, we also have something called hybrid. Hybrid model being you would be hearing Scrum Fall, Scrum Ban, uh, Agile Fall, some names like that. What they actually do is they mix elements of both Waterfall and Agile and use them in the software development. Hybrid actually helps teams in moving from Waterfall to Agile. It will be really difficult if you want to transform the organizational SDLC from Waterfall to Agile right away, because the teams are still working in traditional methodology there. So as a stopgap, people use hybrid and then they move into Agile. Within my firm here in Davie, we have Waterfall SDLC. So when I came in, one of my other project was to to acclimatise people to Agile, and to have Agile SDLC built and created for the future teams to work on. So what I did was to do that. I got Scrum Fall in place, where it had elements from Waterfall and Agile, and then we finally moved into Agile. So it took 2 years for that, because it's Agile, it's a organization level transformation. But hybrid definitely helps if you are purely following Waterfall and want to move to Agile. Any questions here on differences between Waterfall and Agile? Yeah, cool. I'll move on to the next one there. Again, I'm just repeating here. Yeah. I can hear someone there. If you want to ask, please go ahead. Okay, again, I'm just repeating. This is like a discussion rather than a presentation. So if you are already giving interviews, or if you're working currently, and if you're facing these kind of questions, and if you want to add a few more details, please go ahead. I'll be more than happy to have those inputs in this call. Yeah. The next one is estimation. Why do we estimate? Can anyone tell me why do they estimate in their SDLC projects?
Probably it's planning is important. So when we are going to start the designing, okay, and how many resources we need, and how finally we are going to deliver the the whole application to the uh, to the to the client, right? So
Right,
yeah, there are multiples, yeah, but that is basically I think the important one which I can take out.
right. Anyone else?
Because for any project you have the defined budget and scope, it's already defined there. So you need to make sure how you're going to utilize your resources within given the budget, and you have to also make sure that the scope which has been refined has to be achieved. So that's why estimation is required to deliver the project uh, in the long way.
Yeah, great inputs there. 1, budgets. 2, resources. 3, delivery. So we plan and we estimate so that we deliver the product in the timeline which our client requires or our own company requires. But the problem with estimation is most of the estimates at the start when you do upfront, those are wrong. So there's always this question, should we really estimate? Because estimating also takes time from the business analysts and project managers. Should we estimate or should we not estimate? There's always this tussle. That's where Agile kind of helps, because you are not really doing estimation for estimation's sake. You are doing estimation as you go along throughout the project, so that you are not taking a lot of time at the start. What happens in Waterfall is, okay, you have right budget, you have right resources, you did upfront planning, but as you go along, somewhere in development stage, they think this product doesn't work, it's not market to fit, so they need to stop the project. When they do that, they're losing 6 months of the time of all the resources, then they're losing 6 months of the budget, right? That's where Agile is helpful. Okay, Agile is helpful in a way. When I say Agile is helpful, you do a sprint and you develop the product, you think it's not market fit, then you scrap it. You're just losing a sprint's time, which can be 2 weeks to 4 weeks. So planning and estimation both are required, but those are required because of budget, resources, and delivery, which you both rightly nailed. In case of Agile, what happens with planning as well as estimation, it's done throughout. When I say throughout, it's done at high level being release plan level. It's done at sprint level using sprint plan. And then it's done on daily Scrum level. Even in daily Scrum, we have 3 questions which we usually ask. What features you're working on? What features are developed yesterday? What if there are any impediments for your future tickets? So these 3 questions are basically, you are estimating the work of the resource in a way. So it's like you are doing daily Scrum. Okay, for people who do not know Scrum, I'll just quickly explain what Scrum is. If you see the diagram here, just like waterfall projects, you have a project vision. You identify your business goals. In Scrum, what you do is you also prioritize those business goals. For example, if you want to build an app, you look at what's must have before you look at what's good to have. So, or you prioritize those use cases based on must have, should have, could have. It's okay if not have. I mean, there's a prioritization tool called Moscow, which will help you prioritize these use cases. We'll be doing prioritization in some other session in future. And then epics are huge tickets. When I say huge tickets, epics are a collection of user stories. In this case, having movies on the website is a big epic. Within that epic, you will be looking at the layout of the website, what movies to have, how should I display the movies, Should I have the price of the movie ticket on the movie, or should I have it elsewhere? So these are many user stories. When I say user story is a requirement. There are many requirements within this epic. So epic is basically a collection of those user stories. Whenever you're creating epics in your own projects, try to do them by features, because features are huge, and features will have a lot of requirements. So if you in your work, always think epics as big features which you require for your software or for your websites and other applications. Now and then you also prioritize epics. Use cases are business use cases. Epics depend on those business use cases, and you prioritize epics too. Within those epics, you create user stories, and you also prioritize those user stories. If you see here, at the end, you'll have a list of all the user stories which are prioritized based on the requirements at the start of the project. Okay. Once you have this list, you basically, that's the next slide. You basically take a velocity. Velocity, just like speed by distance by time, you have number of user stories that can be completed within a sprint as a number, which will help you in creating the sprints. Like how many sprints do I require to complete 100 requirements? So that planning is done using the term velocity. I'll tell you further what velocity is, how to use velocity in the next slide. But what happens after the high level, prioritization of user stories with respect to business cases at the start, you have a product backlog. This product backlog is basically all the user stories that needs to be completed for this product to be complete, but product is never complete. You just manage the product backlog. So you will have new requirements coming in after every sprint based on what's happening in the market. So product backlog is something where you have all the user stories that your team keeps building to meet the customer requirements or meet the application requirements or meet the business goals. Now, what happens at every sprint? Sprints can be 2 to 4 weeks, and the suggested team size within Agile is 6 to, I think it's 9 to 12, or it can be as small as 4 also if you have smaller teams. What happens at sprint is you have 4 ceremonies. First ceremony is called sprint planning, where you plan for the sprint. So when you're planning for the sprint, you're picking up some user stories from the product backlog. So from the big product backlog, which is prioritized from most important to least important, you're picking up the most important ones first. And these most important ones, you provide them to the user based on the velocity. Let's say velocity says, I can do 5 user requirements for this sprint. You give the developers and testers those 5 requirements. And developers and testers look at those 5 requirements, and they say, hey, with the current team we have, we can't do these 2, can give us the other 2. So as a business analyst or a in this case, product owner, he gives the additional tickets. Then what team does is they sit down, they estimate it for that sprint. So what's happening now is from huge project, you have small project, and you're planning for that small project. So is it easy to plan for the entire project, or is it easy to plan for those user requirements? So common sense says that it's easy to plan for those small requirements. So that's what happens in this planning. In planning, they pick the tickets, they again estimate those tickets. For let's say they took 5 tickets and they estimated that, yeah, they can complete this in this sprint, then they start working on that. Okay, that's sprint planning. And next comes implementation. What happens in implementation is you meet every day for 15 minutes. The other thing, the sprint plan can go on for 3 hours. It's everything in Scrum is time boxed. So there's a time for sprint planning. Planning should be for 3 hours. Daily Scrum should be for 15 minutes. Review can be from 2 to 4 hours. Retrospective can also be from 2 to 4 hours. Those are the 4 ceremonies, but let me dwell into deep here. Like implementation daily Scrum is for 15 minutes. What happens in daily Scrum is the entire Scrum team should attend it, and the Scrum team includes developers and testers who are executing. Product owner may or may not attend it. The development team, they discuss 3 questions. Like they go in round robin, they ask each person, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? And are there any impediments or concerns? Impediment is a word, again, for concerns, which is stopping him to achieve his goal for today. So they'll be talking about that. And they'll be tracking all the user stories on a burn-down chart. Burn-down chart is nothing but, at least sprint burn-down chart. They said they'll work on 5 user stories. The 5 user stories can be 80 hours of work. So 80 hours, or in this case, we say story points. Story points can be days, it can be hours, it can be some other measurement too. It depends upon your own team. So they say 80 hours of work. So you track those 80 hours of work using a burn-down chart. This burn-down chart will tell you whether you're going to achieve your goal or not for this sprint. And then after the sprint, you have a review session. In the review session, what product owner will be doing is he'll be reviewing the product developed by the development team, and he would say whether the product is fit to go into a live application or not. So this is called, sometimes they call it increment decision session too. What happens is you develop the product. Now, if testing and everything is done, then you add it to the actual live application. If it does not, you kind of say, hey, this is not we did not reach the goal. It's not fit for purpose. We need to revisit it in next sprint. So they do all those decisions in this review session. And the last is retrospective. Retrospective are also called delta sessions, where you'll be talking about what did we do good, what we can do better in the next sprint. So if you see here, it can run from 2 to 4 weeks, whatever time it runs. It gives you a nice platform or format to track your work, to track your development, to plan, estimate, to review, and to also retrospective. So this is in a way, it's called progressive elaboration. As we go along in project, we keep elaborating. Our estimates become closer to trueness. When I say trueness, become closer to correct. So that way, Agile helps you in planning, better execution, better estimations. Any questions here which I can answer, or any inputs if they want to add, which I might have missed? Okay, then cheers. I'm going to the next one. So within Agile, there's a Agile planning sequence, which is basically sizing the user story, estimating those user stories, and planning the user stories. So when I talked about sprint planning, I talked about, size, estimate, and plan for that sprint. So same thing. Size can be in 2 ways: story points, ideal days. Story points is just a measure for user stories. In my current project, I use number of hours as a measure for user stories. And you can also do by ideal days. Same thing. I mean, days are hours, but it's just that it's just a naming convention. And velocity is number of story points you want to do in a sprint. What happens in Scrum methodology is at the start, you come up with a number for velocity. Let's say there are 10 sprints. In the first sprint, you said the velocity is 20 story points. And the users the development team did only 18. Let's just say 18. You track it as 18. The second sprint, you say, in the first sprint, we had 18. So the second sprint velocity is 18.
Yella, I think you are breaking.
Okay, let me stop my video. There seems to be some problem here. Is it okay now?
Yeah, is it okay, Yella? But yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
It's okay now.
Okay, sorry. Let me know, because sometimes my broadband acts weird here. Sometimes, yeah. Good. Is it okay now?
Yeah,
It's okay.
it is fine. Yes.
Thanks for letting me know. I'll repeat again here. So the agile planning sequence is size, estimate, plan. It's the format for agile planning, just like what I told in sprint planning. You size the size of user stories can be done in story points or ideal days. It's up to you how do you want to measure this work. So in my case, the story points is number of hours. Like one story point is 3 hours, something of that measurement which I use in my current project. Prasad or Shishikant, what would you do in your projects, like for story points?
Actually, the high level estimation are already done. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when these, the prod backlog was created.
Yeah.
Okay. So now it is very difficult sometimes. Okay. What I check, keep the check is like, we should not take a very big user story. Okay.
Yeah.
So whenever there is a story of 20, story point 30, even in some of the teams they are taking 40.
Yeah.
It's very weird actually. Okay, so that's why we, at least in my team, I keep that check, like whenever there is a 13 story point,
Mm-hmm.
more than 30 story point, you have to break it into smaller one.
Yeah.
The smaller user story, the reason, like, just I will complete in 30 seconds. Like the smaller user story will be mostly the independent. Okay, and
Yeah.
the risk can be assessed very quickly on the smaller user story. So that's the reason.
Adding to Shitskat's point there, so what happens, I mean, I didn't talk about compound user stories, complex user stories, because that was not on the agenda for this. But what happens is the features, some of those tickets, like build, have AWS infrastructure set up for the application. That's a big user story. It has multiple things to do. So such stories are complex stories where you can divide the work across sprints if it can't be done in one sprint. There's some tickets, user stories like, okay, the user story which was talking about the feature, which is compound user story. In this user story, you can actually break them into independent, valuable, estimable, tickets, user stories. So there's this terminology called invest in Scrum. Invest being what should a user story be like? It should be an independent, valuable ticket. It should be estimable. It should be small. It should be I think it's timeable, which means that
No, I think it is testable.
testable. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, testable.
That's
So as Shitkan said, that if you break down these user stories into simple ones, it's easy to complete them within that sprint. So these story points help you to decide whether it's a complex user story or a simple user story. And these, number of user points will help you in arriving velocity based on, and then it will help you in saying, hey, how many spins I require.
Yella, your voice is breaking.
Now is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Yeah, sorry. So that's the thing. We use story points as an estimation, and based on the size of your stories, you size them. First, you get it to a small size, and then you estimate for the sprint, and then you just plan. It's done at high level, but she's considered they're doing high level. It's done high level even in Agile, but it's done primarily at sprint level to get the exact estimation. That's about estimation terminology. The next slide is about the actual estimation techniques. You might have heard about planning poker. Poker, everyone plays poker, right? Poker cards. You have poker cards. In this case, planning poker uses Fibonacci numbers to arrive at estimates. Fibonacci series. Everyone knows Fibonacci series. It's 1, 2, 3. Next is 5. Next is 8. Next is 13. You keep adding the previous two numbers to other numbers. Why Fibonacci series is used is because let's say if you're using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a card game or in estimates, the numbers are very close to each other. but in reality, the features do not follow a straight linear path. Every ticket is different. So we use Fibonacci series numbers in planning poker to arrive at estimates. In my opinion, planning poker is good for small teams because planning poker goes through multiple rounds of estimation. I'll quickly use a whiteboard here. Yeah, I'll just use a text here. So what happens in planning poker is you have these Fibonacci numbers, okay, which are user story points. It can go on based on what it is. So one is one user point, two is two story points, three is three story points, five is five story points, eight is eight story points. So this is the size of the ticket which you need to decide. Now you give poker cards to every member in the development team. Let's say you are 9 members there, so you give poker cards to every 9, and you bring this user story onto the screen and say, can you estimate how many story points this user story is? Now in the first round, what happens is, let's say in this there are ABC that we are a member of 3, and A says it's 5 user story points, B says it's 3, C says it's 13. So if you see, you got 3, 5, and 13. You have a developer who says 13, and you have a developer who says 3. You think, why 2 developers are giving 2 different estimates? So we again do a round 2 of discussion saying, hey, you say 13, you say 3. Can you come to a middle ground? Why is it so varied? So after round 2, let's say the user C comes down to 8, but the user 1 is still on 3. Again, there'll be another round to say, hey, can you still, why is it so varying? Why don't you come to 5? And then these rounds of discussions keep going on till there's a consensus among all the team members. So that's the reason why I said, planning poker is good for small teams, because it goes through multiple rounds for each user story, which makes estimation in larger teams relatively difficult and takes more time. Whereas in small teams, it's easy to arrive at consensus much faster than larger teams. A small democracy is always a better democracy than a large democracy. As simple as that. Any questions on planning poker? There is a nice website called planningpoker.com where you can test planning poker out. Yeah, sorry, someone was...
I have a very basic question, and excuse me for that.
Yeah.
But I really, all the time I encounter this question, I get puzzled, right? So, like, people tend to ask this question many of time, right? Why you can't estimate in hours? Why only user story points, right? If it 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It's the sequence, like it is also ascending, right?
Yeah.
So I know there is certainty and all that. What should be the best answer? Like what example should I present? What is the precise answer for this particular question in your view? Please?
Yeah, Manish, before I was telling, for me, at least in my work, it's really difficult to not estimate in hours. So
Yeah.
what I do is story point is a measure, right? For every story point, I have number of hours of work measured already. So if they say 3 story point, it may be 30 hours of work. 5 story point, 50 hours of work. So story points is a language which Scrum uses, but story point is a measure which you can define. It's purely related to your own project, the way you do things. So within our organization, we have each story point to be 10 hours of development work to make it easy for us to estimate and do things. But we still use story points as a terminology when we discuss planning poker and when we do estimates.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Yella, I just wanted to add here, sorry to interrupt. So basically, you go on based on your history as well. So let's say if you have you have previous sprints is been carried out, those details you can just consider, and maybe those values you can keep in mind, and based on that you can decide and work around.
Yes, that's the fifth one there, affinity estimation. Yeah, that's. But within planning poker looks at the tickets for this sprint. So affinity estimation will definitely help you to say, I mean, in the first round, how would someone say 3, 5, 13? Because they would have worked on similar tickets, similar size ticket earlier in other sprints. So they came up with those numbers. And affinity estimation kind of will help us to say, yeah, it's not a 13 ticket, it's a 5 ticket because of same size ticket was done in previous sprint.
Correct. Right.
Yeah, we will come to that. But purely planning poker, if you're doing a first sprint or second sprint or fifth sprint, this is what it is. Like you have story points which have a measure, and then you directly go ahead and say arrive at user story point, and you add the story points to come up with a number for velocity, and that's how you track velocity. The other thing about velocity is after third or fourth sprint, you kind of average out your story points and say, hey, our team can do 15 on average in every sprint. So you keep planning for 15, so that if you have 10 sprints which were planned for 20 story points a sprint, you can expand it to 13 or 14 to complete the user stories. So that kind of planning can be done with the help of velocity. Velocity is for overall sprint release planning, I would say, rather than a sprint plan. That's another point which I missed to talk there. Any questions on planning poker? Okay, is my voice clear?
Yeah, in between it's breaking, but yeah, now it's clear actually.
Okay.
Sometimes it's breaking, yeah.
Okay. I'll see. I'll talk to the broadband why it's happening. It's happening frequently these days. The second thing is bucket system. Bucket system also follows the planning poker Fibonacci series. It's just that it's very helpful for bigger teams. How bucket system works is, how do I? Let me do that. Okay, so I'm just drawing a line there. You have user stories, okay? And sorry there, yeah. Now, what happens in bucket system is on the table, you have all the Fibonacci numbers till 100, okay? And then you draw your line, and then you will ask the team to place the tickets. So you have 5 tickets, and Prasad is placing them under 1, 5, 13, 3, and 8. Okay. The next member tries to place them, let's say 2, 3, 18, 13, somewhere around 1. So similar manner, you have other people placing those tickets which were given to them for planning. Now, what you do is, let's say if it is 13 for all the team, everyone says 13 for a ticket, you remove that ticket. So in that manner, you can remove multiple tickets. If everyone is saying, hey, that's a 5 ticket or that's a 13 ticket. So instead of 5 at the end, you'll have only 2 tickets to discuss to reach consensus. Because for the rest, you reach consensus right away by each member placing those user stories at the right estimates. In planning poker, you bring up the ticket user story, you discuss the user story, come to consensus in multiple rounds. Here, you just ask them to place, and then within 2-3 minutes, you have the user stories which needs discussion. So bucket system works for larger teams with large number of tickets, so that they can arrive at small number of tickets to make a decision. Again, they still are very similar to planning poker, but the way it is conducted is different. And these are called buckets. 1, 2, 3. Those user story points are called buckets in bucket system. Clear? Or any question on our bucket system? Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sure. So if you have heard planning poker works on, you have user story points, you bring up each user story, and you try to reach consensus on the user story. You do multiple rounds of estimations for that user story. In bucket system, you give user stories to each user. They place them in the buckets. Let's say one user story, few of those user stories, everyone agrees on them that that's bucket 5. You remove them and say it's bucket 5. And you'll be left with only few tickets at the end. Instead of 100, you'll be left with 20, 30 to make a decision on. So that helps if you're working in larger teams with large number of tickets, that really helps to drill down or come down to few tickets within minutes. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Triangulation related to affinity estimation are very similar. Within triangulation, what you say is you have only the you have only 3 categories: large, where you say it's a large ticket, and you say uncertain. You are uncertain that whether it's a large ticket or a small ticket, and then you have small. So there are only 3 categories. If you say large ticket, you may have, you can predefine it. Like if it's a large ticket, it's 30 hours of work. If it's a small ticket, it's 10 hours of work. If it's an uncertain ticket, we need to decide how many hours it takes. Same thing. And I'm talking hours instead of story points because both are interchangeable based on the definition you have for story point in your workplace. So in this case, it's easy to say, okay, it's 30 hours, this is 10 hours. Uncertain, we need to decide, we need to talk about it. Even here, it's good for larger teams because they quickly come to uncertain tickets to discuss. Any question here? Any doubts? Same thing with Affinity. Affinity, in Affinity, you still be using user stories 1, 2, 3, 5, 18. What happens in Affinity estimation is you look at the user story and say, hey, we did the similar user story in sprint 3. That was an 8 ticket, so it will be 8 ticket for this sprint. So the decision is made based on your previous experiences, which Agile teaches actually. Empiricism is the foundation of Agile. Your experiences will tell you what to do, what your next step should be. So affinity estimation is pretty much like that. You say, hey, we have similar size ticket, which you did in sprint 3. That was 8, and this will be 8. By that, that kind of decision making will come with your experience. Like you in sprint 10, you'll be able to make such kind of decision. So affinity estimation is best suited for down the line in the project. Planning poker is best suited in the start for small teams. Bucket system is best suited in the start for larger teams. Triangulation also is suited not at the start, somewhere in the middle, where you can do affinity estimation or you can do triangulation. Disintegration, Shashikant already talked about it. It's basically slicing compound stories or complex stories into simple user stories that can be achieved. When I say achieved, it needs to be developed, tested, and ready to ship. So that's disaggregation. T-shirt sizing is very similar to our T-shirt size. XS, like you got T-shirt size like XS, M, L, XL, XXL. Each of these sizes will have number of hours or number of story points behind them. And you say this is an extra small ticket. Let's say I want to add a button to click, add to cart button there. So that's a small exercised user story. XXL would be, I want to, so when I click on the button, it should open up a payment screen and it should allow me to enter the values and click pay. So that would be XXL. So based on the user story, people decide where to put, and if they put in L, it may be related to phi. And this t-shirt sizing can follow round robin, it can follow multiple rounds, or it can follow bucket system. Planning program bucket system are way of doing things, and you can use that in any of these. Wideband Delphi, it's no more used. What happens with wideband Delphi is it's very not similar. It's a little complex. It's purely mathematics. Let's say in the first estimate, I have 358 for a user ticket. Okay, what I do is I take the weighted average of this. Let's say if I take weighted average of this, it comes around 5.1, close to 5.1. Okay. Now, when it comes to close to 5.1, it's very close to ticket 5. I asked the teams to talk about 5, why 5 should be the size, and decide and come to consensus that, yeah, 5 is the right size. Did you get it?
Sorry, Yella, can you please come again?
Yeah. So in wideband Delphi, what happens is on a single user story, you ask each team members to come up with number of story points for the ticket. For example, in this, you have three members in your team, and you gave a user story, and each of them gave a different number. One gave you 3, one gave you 5, one gave you 8. In wideband Delphi, the product owner, what he does is he adds those numbers and divides by 3. Just give me a minute. Yeah, sorry. The product owner adds those numbers. Okay, 3 plus 5 plus 8 is 16. Divided by 3 is somewhere close to 5.33.
Yeah.
So 5.33 is close to 5. So the product owner says, hey, it's close to 5. I think 5 is the right one. Why don't you decide, discuss among yourself and come to 5?
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. As simple as that.
Yeah.
Dotting method is where everyone will be given few dots. Let's say I'll be giving you 5 dots. I'll be giving 5 dots to each of them. And I'll ask them, how many dots would this user story be? If someone says 3 dots, someone says 2 dots, someone says 4 dots. Again, you kind of discuss why you think it's a 4 dot story. Why do you think it's a 3 dot story? Why do you think it's a 2 dot story? And try to get them to consensus. People, it's same, but it's done in different way. We are actually doing estimates. We are coming to closer to the right estimate for that user story. So you can use a dot method, you can use a wideband Delphi, you can use a planning poker. It's just that when to use is what is important. Like you use, as I said earlier, planning poker bucket system, good to use at the start. Affinity estimation, triangulation, good to t-shirt sizing. Good, not t-shirt sizing, sorry. Triangulation and affinity estimation, good to use once you are done with 5-6 sprints. Dot method is very similar to, giving number of dots and giving importance to the tickets. Dot method is also used in prioritization. Earlier I told you about, we do a lot of prioritization of user stories before we start sprints. So dot method is also used there. In there it is used to say, if it's a 4 dot ticket, it's a important ticket. If it's a 2 dot ticket, least important. So number of dots will define how important the user story is, and that will be on top of the priority list. So that way also you can use dot ordering. Now, ordering method is something I never used, and I came across while I am preparing this slide. It works this way. So you got a line. Next. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry. Okay. Now, what happens is there's a single user story here. Okay. One of the guys puts it into 3. and the next guy, the same user story. He can move either to 5 or 2. He can't move it to 8. Okay, and next guy moves it to 5, and the third guy again moves it back to 3. So what happens in ordering method is they track the movement, because it can go one up or one down, and they take the final position and say this is the size of the ticket. Why I just thought, okay, why is it, how can they arrive at consensus without having discussion just by moving tickets from one place to another place? But it's actually a good method and pretty quick method, because you have the first guy just placing it what he thinks is right, and the other guy can only move if a step forward or a step backward, unlike in planning poker. In planning poker, you can have one guy saying it's a 1 ticket, the other guy saying it's a 13 ticket, right? This, you can moving down or up just by one place means that there's less flexibility around sizing, and the final place would be right size. So this is good for, if you're doing at the start of the project. It's a good estimation technique, and it's pretty quick too. And when I really think about the mathematics, it's very similar to wideband, but in wideband Delphi, you can also have something similar to planning poker, where before you come to mean average, you can have outliers. In this case, you will not have any outlier, and the average is pretty simple. Any questions around ordering method or any of these estimation methods? Yeah. So these estimates are used at sprint level. Most of these, okay. The one which you can use at high level. When I say high level, at release plan level, is primarily dot voting. Dot voting is really easy to use at high level. You can also use t-shirt sizing at high level. High level sizing is not the right estimate, so the actual right estimate is at sprint level. So primarily we use a lot of planning poker and all at sprint level, but t-shirt sizing, dot voting at the start, so that we can quickly arrive at numbers, because those numbers are always wrong. Yeah, any questions, any suggestions here? Cool. Basically the next slide is okay, just where is it? So within Agile, you have Scrum Alliance, Scrum.org, and PMI as primary Agile certification providers. Scrum Alliance have certified Scrum Master, certified Scrum Product Owner. If you want to become a product owner, you do CSPO. If you want to become a Scrum Master, you do CSM. I did PSM because PSM, it's self-study, and you have 1 hour to do all 80 questions, and it's cheap. Whereas Scrum Alliance, you need to attend classes for 2 days, and those 2 days sessions will help you to get CSM pretty easily. So but it's very costly. It's almost 3 to 4 times PSM. So that's the reason I did PSM, and I suggest PSM too. PSPO is again professional Scrum product owner. PMI ACP costs around 50 euros, and you may need to take up some test series to practice. It has 120 questions for 3 hours, and all the questions are situation based. So it's a very tricky exam. But if you do this certification, it's you will have a lot of opportunities within interviews and stuff, and a lot of companies I see are looking for PMP. We're looking for PMP. They're now looking for ACP because of Agile certified practitioner. Within Works, anything related to Scrum is in Scrum Guide. It's about the 4 ceremonies, events, the roles in Scrum methodology, but it doesn't have things around estimation and all. But it has purely stuff around how Scrum needs to be run. And PMI ACP exam preparation, it's a book by Mike Griffiths. It's a must read. even if you're not doing PMI ACP certification, this book really helps you to understand Agile, because Agile is not just Scrum, it's XP, it's Kanban, it's Lean, many things. So this book definitely helps you to understand Agile much better. Yeah.
Hi, Yella. So
Yeah.
I'm using this for PMI ACP exam. Currently, I'm using this first aid. Uh, First aid PMI ACP, first aid agile.
Oh, First Aid Agile, it's a book or it's the question series, exam series?
No, it's a book. Actually, I like this first aid series.
Okay.
First aid series. So yeah, so that's
Okay.
so that's why I use. But you will you use this mic graphics,
My Griffiths,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this is better, like, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll do one thing. I'll tell you my PMI ACP story. Okay. So Udemy for Business was free at my work location. So you need to get 21 professional development units, 21 PDUs. So I did the course on Udemy. You'll have 3 practice tests with that course. But those questions are very simple. They cover the knowledge rather than the situational based questions. And then what I did was I took PMI precast test series. There were 4 tests. I did all those 4 tests multiple times, and then I went and gave the exam. PMI precast is very tough series, and in the exam I did above target in all the 7 modules. So PMI precast, I would suggest it highly to do it. After I did PMI precast, I was still not confident, so I sat down and read Mike Griffiths. It cleared a lot of stuff, a lot of things for me. I got a lot of clarity. Yeah, so you need to have a book.
So you prepared at your own, right? For
Yeah,
this
at my own. Yeah.
PMICP? Oh.
Yeah. So it was $99 per PMI paycast, and the exam, I think it's $475 or something like that. It's a costly exam, but if you do it, the returns are there. Definitely, you can actually ask for more salary during your interview after you get a job offer.
Yes, yes. But as you said, like the Scrum Alliance CSM is costly than Scrum or PSM.
Yes.
I think one of my friend did PSM. He said it's around 20,000, and even I did CSM. I think 2 years back, it was again 25,000.
PSM is $150. So when I did, it was 10,000 something. Okay. CSM, you need to attend classes, and the CSM, it's not 28,000, something like that. So I think Shravant, you may be right person there.
Yeah, it's around PSM is $150 something. Yes.
Yeah. Again, Sahil said PSM lifetime validity. I'm not sure about lifetime validity.
Lifetime validity. Yeah. That is important, because in CSM on every 2 years you have to pay $100. I think so that makes the difference.
Yeah. So there's a reason. See, the thing with PSM is you do self study. When you do self study, you learn a lot.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Any questions?
Sorry to interrupt. Actually, I did a CSM in the last month, and yeah, it was a 2 days full-time session, and the overall cost was, including the certification, it was around 23,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes difference when you start renewing the things, right?
Yeah.
So every year you have to pay $100. So that will, by the way, like in 5-6 years you will be paying more than the PSM. This is what I think.
Yeah. One more thing within a lot of people, they do it once and they don't renew the designation. To be honest, once you have CSM and you have work experience doing Scrum, you don't really need to renew your designations. That's what my understanding is. But with PMI, you need to do some PDU hours, and those hours will actually help you to get apprised of the latest happenings in SDLC.
Correct. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, these are my suggested drinks. I hope you let again. Thank you for being audience for this session. Sorry for some trouble from my side on internet. Yeah, in future I think we may do some more sessions like this. I hope in future sessions there'll be more discussions around Scrum and other things which come up for discussions. I hope this was okay session. This is my first session doing online on Agile. I hope I did a decent job.
No, it was really good.
No, it was really great actually, Yella. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, I mean, the techniques and, so basically in my experience, we hardly, use few techniques, but then, yeah, I mean, uh, this session was really good, to know about the other techniques as well, which we generally do not follow, but then, yeah, now we got an idea actually. There are other techniques also which we can, use and, try in our day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
Only sorry to actually again going back, but then
Yeah, no problem.
if you have some time for ordering method, actually I didn't understand clear. If you have any example, how exactly we do the ordering method? So,
Okay.
so like let's say if you have a team of 4 or 5 resources in your team.
Yeah.
So how generally we carry that? I mean, I understood the fundamental. I mean the basic, but
so
then,
to implement it, so have it have the so even for bucket system or ordering method, you should have a physical table, or if there's no physical table, you need to use a whiteboard. Let me see if I can do a whiteboard. Okay, just give me a minute.
Sure.
Present. Sharing options. Yeah. Can you see the whiteboard?
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's say this is a table, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have 1, 2, 3. Excuse me for my bad handwriting. Okay, 5, 8, and you are 3 members, A, B, C.
Okay.
Now, I give the ticket to A to decide where he wants to place. So let's say he places it at 3. Now, B can only move the ticket to either 2 or 5. He can't move it to 8 and 1. So what B does is he moves it to 5. Now C comes in and says, yeah, it's a 5 ticket. So C doesn't move it, he keeps it there. Now this final position is the size of the ticket.
Okay.
So what happens in planning poker is everyone will give a number like 3. A says 3, B says 5, C says 8. Then we'll have another round asking A and C why it is 3 and 8, why not 5.
Correct.
So we try to get a consensus and try to get it to 5. Right? I mean, if it's a larger team, it takes more time. But in this case, if it's a larger team or small team, you quickly arrive at the consensus by just moving tickets. The only rule is B cannot move the ticket to 8 and 1. They can only move to the next or the bad one. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I thought, I mean, if you're a larger team or a small team with a large number of tickets, that would definitely help you. Because just moving tickets, you a ticket number, and smaller team, large tickets. Yeah, as I told, I think I also told, I didn't tell ordering, but t-shirt sizing dot method is highly used. I mean, we also use it at high level planning within my team.
Yeah.
I use dot method because it's pictographic too. But now, given, I don't know if we are trying to look for a nice online tool to do our Scrum, but still happening.
Yeah, because this ordering method, I never heard about the ordering method, so this is like new to me. But it's good. I mean,
yeah.
For the smaller team and as you mentioned, the large size, we can actually we can use this method.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Yella. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for being audience. If I'm doing next session, I'll also include some PMI ACP questions related to the topic so that we can do those questions too. If you're working on, if you're working towards your PSM or PMI ACP, I hope that will help. I'll try to include those things next time. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Shravan, for hosting this.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Yella.
Cheers. Bye. Have a good day.
Thanks, Yella.
You
Thanks
too.
for your time.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
And I will upload this YouTube. I will upload into YouTube, and I will share the slides in the meetup group.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
if anyone wants to join in the meetup group, so we will create the vibrant community, so we can exchange knowledge.
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.